loved these when I was first getting.
Alrighty, so I'm going to do some introductions for our wonderful panelists today. In no particular order, we have Grace, who is a conversational lead for Europe for Fjord and Accenture Interactive. So this new role that she has is focused on establishing and expanding the craft of conversational design for our teams in Europe. Before that, she was content design lead at the Dock, which is Accenture's innovation hub in Dublin. Grace is passionate about a human-centered approach to language and the role of content and conversation at the heart of the design process. Grace has a background in the humanities, journalism, copywriting, and UX design. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Grace.
Thank you so much, Brielle. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody.
All right, Brittany Neil is a conversation designer at Wix, one of the world's leading website building companies. And with a strong background in linguistics and NLP, Brittany focuses on leveraging data to ensure a smooth and effective conversational experience. Her past work at a prominent translation company, along with current work on a bot that supports 9 languages and counting across hundreds of millions of users, gives her key insights into building a successful conversation design team. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Brittany.
Yeah, really happy to participate.
All right, Marlinda
Gallo.
Okay, Gallo is a conversation design senior at Salesforce, where she's helping to grow the company's first dedicated conversation design practice. She brings unique perspectives gained from her educational background in healthcare and her previous work on chatbots at Yahoo and Adobe. Marlinda believes in the power of words and is more than thrilled to be in a field where she can combine her lifelong love of language, design, and the workings of interpersonal relationships to bring solutions that empower businesses with delightful, helpful, and natural interactions. Thanks for joining us today, Marlinda.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, and Willem started out as a UX copywriter and made the switch to conversation designer and AI trainer 4 years ago. He likes dancing and looking at Excel sheets, activities that unfortunately are hard to combine. Thank you for being with us today, Will.
Thank you, Brielle. Thank you, Uli, also for making this happen. Looking forward to it.
So let's get started on some of our questions. This is one question that everyone wanted to answer. So why don't we start with Marlinda and then go to Brittany and then Willem and then Grace. So first of all, how do you organize your team around multiple bot projects? Actually, let's just stop there. How do you organize your team around multiple bot projects?
Right now, we're just, we just use a UI text doc where we use it as a single source of truth, because there are like lots of teams that have a hand in suggesting the way that the bot speaks, and we want to keep track of that. And it's really the best way. We use it in Google Docs, and really right now the best way that we've been keeping track of any changes.
That's a great idea. Brittany?
We have a lot of different projects going on at all times. And so our team is kind of broken up into different sectors. So like I'll handle language specific flows, and another part of my team will handle sales flows. And so we'll kind of break it up that way, and that helps because we get a lot of competing projects. And so we have a couple, just Asana is our best friend. We also use another project management tool called Monday that we like. And so we'll come in and we'll kind of just divide it through our team. And we kind of can all work on all pieces of like what it takes, like using the data to make it better. So we can all handle those different factors, each one of us. So that's how we like to do it. So
Brittany, do you have someone, for example, spearhead a particular flow, and then do you have kind of like a partner come in and then provide design feedback on that? Like, how does the feedback process work after someone has already designed something?
So our team, like our conversation designers, will take a look after one of us has built it and then give feedback there, and then we'll improve it. And then we'll also go back with the team the outside team that requested it, like for support, you know, maybe it's a specific department that wants a specific flow. And so we'll work and make sure that they like what we've done. And then once we launch it, we'll also work with our business analyst and make sure that it's all going as well as we hoped.
Okay. Marlinda, how does your team manage the feedback loops of the designs?
Well, we have like a central team that kind of reviews accessibility, globalization. So different projects working on different conversation designs for, I'm trying to make this as general as possible. We'll create the designs, and then the standards team will review that process and the designs. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Willem, back to the original question. How do you organize your team around multiple bot projects?
Well, I mean, ticketing systems definitely, as Brittany mentioned. But what we like to use is dialogue sheets where we have the dialogue or the flow. Actually, it's kind of a, you know, it's a glorified Excel sheet. We like to use Google Sheet, but of course not every company is comfortable with Google. But so then at least everyone can chime in. And we have a pretty mapped out process where you start with what is the use case, what does the bot need to understand about the human, what does the human, the customer, need to get out of the bot. So how do you then structure the dialogue? First you start with a flow chart, then you move it into the dialogue sheet where you start to map out specific steps, then you test those before you actually implement them. You usually have a senior conversation designer at the end coming in to polish off the text. So yeah, that's kind of our process.
Awesome. Grace, how does your team manage multiple projects at once?
Yeah, so I kind of maybe took a slightly different angle on this, because within Fjord and Accenture Interactive and Accenture overall, you know, typically we'd have tons of different teams working with different organizations at the same time. And, you know, part of the challenge is kind of keeping those teams connected, learning from each other, sharing best practices. And typically they'll be using a variety of different tools, processes, but it's about really kind of keeping those teams talking to each other and building communities within Accenture so we can all learn and share those best practices. And I think you know, conversations are local as well, so it's really important for us to build up those teams in our local studios. And the European team that I'm on now is more, you know, is around learning from them and getting inspired by them, but also, you know, sharing with them our thinking and the research we're doing, and that kind of bird's eye view, I guess, that we have. So there's, yeah, part of the challenge is that there's so much going on at any given time, and that it's about, you know, getting a handle on that, and you know, trying to share the great work and learn from mistakes as well, of course. So that's what's going on with us.
Grace, do you have kind of like a central wiki or repository where you're all adding learnings and information as you go?
Yeah, we have kind of, you know, things like Teams channels, and a conversational AI community, but you know, often you don't get the same level of understanding of, you know, what the team has learned, what the team has done, as you would from like a conversation with someone. And so over the last couple of weeks, I've been having lots of great conversations with teams everywhere, you know, Germany, Spain, teams working in Italy, to really have those one-to-one conversations. And particularly as I'm new to this role and trying to understand what the victories and the failures have been. So yeah, we do have ways to kind of document those, but also like building those relationships with the teams is really important as well. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, Will.
Yeah, I mean, we would be remiss not to mention Botrock. I don't have any experience with Botrock myself. And I think, once you get into a certain workflow using a certain tools, then you sort of get set in your ways. That's why I've been telling myself I need to try out Botrock.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Willem. I was just going to say a lot of our teams are using Botrock as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear how you
yeah.
find that.
Yeah, great. Like they're all getting on really well with it. But there are so many, I think this was another question, like the ways to document conversational flows and prototype. There's so many different ways, and that's okay, that's good, and everybody's finding a way that suits them best, I guess.
Absolutely. Thanks for mentioning, Willem. Alrighty, this is a hard question. So, Brittany, do you want to start us off with how do you think about pricing the work of a conversational design team? Like, how would you pitch it to leadership to get budget? Like, how are your teams kind of thinking about that?
Well, Wix, when we first launched the bot, it was able to reduce our customer support requests dramatically. So we already knew that it was, just valuable based on seeing that. We have a huge support team. We really care that our users can just get up and running quickly, and we just, anytime they have a frustration, we want to just nip it in the bud, or just have somebody on it, basically. But of course, not even everybody wants to talk their problem out with a human. They want to get into their resources or just solve it themselves. So having the bot as a resource is valuable to our users that way too, not even just being for us on our side getting to cut out the human support, which can be expensive, but also just it's more valuable to the people using our product. So that already, as soon as we launched it, we found huge success there. And in terms of when departments are wanting a specific flow, we go by traffic. How many users are using that? How many people would benefit from that? So that's how it goes for us. That's always the question. Because we'll get tons of requests and too many to handle. And so always our first question: what's the traffic here?
That makes sense. Yeah, Willem, any thoughts?
Yeah. So since this year at my company, we've started trying to slot an incoming client into which phase they are, whether it's a POC phase where they're just trying it out, or MVP, or actual product phase, or as we call the fourth one, scale. So that's because sometimes a client comes in and they want the moon. They want to do chat, and they want to do voice, and they want to do it across all these different channels, multiple languages, transactional dialogues, everything. But then it turns out they are still trying things out, right? They're still maybe in POC phase. So even then, when you're pricing, then maybe for a POC, it's just to show, within the company that actual business value can be achieved, where So, but to be fair, Brittany, we also ask how much traffic are you currently already getting? Or maybe you don't have a chatbot yet, and then you probably want to start with a POC type chatbot where the actual benefit at the end of that small phase is not going to be that you're already helping so many customers, but yet that you've proven to yourself and to the rest of the company that there is something there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Willem. How about you, Grace? What do you think about pricing the work of the conversation design team?
Gosh, I'd be straight up and say the pricing is definitely not my forte. There are other people in the team that are much better at it than me. But however, I think in a broader sense, as designers, we should be thinking about how we articulate the business value of good design. And I was thinking about KPIs. Our clients will use a lot of different kinds of KPIs depending on what their business goals are. what the function of their bot is. And I think, you know, typically, obviously, there's a lot of quantitative metrics there, like as we're all saying, the number of requests, the volume of requests that this bot can deal with, etc. And of course, they're important business goals. But I think we also, and many of us are incorporating, you know, the more qualitative metrics, like trying to get trying to get a handle on the user experience, because ultimately that's going to have a negative impact on the value of the system and the design overall, if that's dipping. So I think, but again, trying to measure that is super hard. So I think there are methods that we have already from to determine how well the experience is going, but I think there's still a lot of work for us to be able to get a handle on metrics around conversation design, because I think it's a, you know, it's notoriously difficult to find metrics that can tell you how successful that conversation actually is. So yeah, I think that's all still work in progress for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so moving a little bit more towards your team's process around chatbot personality or persona. Marlinda, how does your team approach the degree of personalization for your chatbot? And then how is your team kind of documenting that and making sure that everyone's always on the same page with those characteristics?
Well, right now at Salesforce, we don't do any kind of assessment of users for the different kinds of ways of speaking. We do have a lot of users with information already in Salesforce. So we use a feature called Salesforce Flow to push and pull data, and that's how we personalize the experience for our users.
Oh, okay. And then for the side of just like the bot's tone of voice and its behaviors and kind of the persona that it projects out, do you have a document that your team uses to like define those characteristics?
Right now, yes, we do have a Salesforce brand voice for the chat. Yeah.
Okay. And is that kind of like just in document format?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nice. Let's see who else wanted this question. Oh yeah, Grace.
I might just jump in quickly there to give my point of view on the degree of personalization, because it's a topic that's really interested me since I started to get into this field. And like through the work that we did with a project called the Future Conversation, you know, we were really led to the insight that, you know, human-like doesn't necessarily mean human-centered, and the system doesn't have to seem human in order to be effective and efficient. But having said that, a certain amount of personalization or personification can be helpful. And I wanted to kind of call out this amazing book, which I've been devouring over the past couple of weeks, called Conversations with Things. Rebecca and Diana have done a fantastic job with this book anyway. It's just going to be my Bible, I think. But they do have a section around, a chapter dedicated to crafting the personality, and they have a section on how basically a way for you to decide as a team to what degree you want to make your bot seem more human. And so they talk about how if it's more of a, I guess, a system that you use quite infrequently, it's more transactional, you might not want to personify the system that much. It's not really necessary. It's going to get in the way of things. Whereas if you've got something like a voice assistant, Alexa, Google Home, that's always there, a little bit more of a part of your life, you may want to obviously get that thing a name, which they have. the system would refer to itself, the bot will refer to itself as I. So there's a more of an opportunity there to make this to personify. I don't know whether I'm probably confusing personalization and personification. I was kind of thinking more of how we personify the system. So that's probably another question, but anyway.
Oh, that all makes a lot of sense, Grace. And does your team also have kind of like a brand document to make sure that, one teammate is not writing prompts that have 4 exclamation marks and then another teammate is using periods and it's just inconsistent? Do you have a process around how to like standardize it on your team?
Yeah, and I think having a document that outlines the personality of the bot is something that we would definitely advise our teams to do. And I think it's very much it's natural to people like me, I think, as content strategists, content designers, who are used to having to create those documents or wanting to create those documents that give people guidance as they go ahead and continue to create content. It's no different. It's no different in this case.
Yeah, makes sense. Brittany, what about you? Do you have a process around this on your team?
Yeah, we do have from an entirely different person from our conversation design team, and they're called from the Writers Guild of Wix. So they created our persona, and we've actually been now just integrating it into the bot. Oh, wow. So some of the Wix bot is a little bit different toned than our new persona, Caro. But so basically, I think this was where, when we were looking for hiring new designers too, we really put emphasis that they could carry out the tone of the persona. Like basically we have them create a persona in an assessment during the interview stage. They create a persona, and then we see that it matches that persona, because that's consistency is what builds trust. So I think that's very important. And so we do have a doc also that, for especially with consistent phrases or things that are used a lot throughout the bot, we want it all throughout. And so we have the docs, but of course it's always expanding, and it's keeping up with documentation is is important, and that's how we do. But so we do have a doc, but we also go over each other's language. So there will always be somebody's eyes on it, and so we'll usually tweak to get it back into that when there's something.
It's really interesting that you have in the hiring process, you actually have an assessment that is related to, can you create a consistent bot persona that matches ours? And you feel like that assessment has been really helpful with the hiring process?
We ask them to produce. It doesn't have to be our persona. They normally it goes kind of this, since they they will be building, usually it goes, or at least when I did the assessment, I certainly tried to make it what I would think would be Wix-ish, but it doesn't have to be like ours, but it's just that they can carry through consistently.
Got it. Okay. Any final thoughts around persona documentation, processes around this before we jump into the next thing? Okay, cool. Willem, do you want to answer the question that was just asked?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Matthew, thank you for your question. I said I would answer that because that ties in with all the questions on teams, I think. So maybe we can kick that part off. So Matthew was asking, should conversation designers also be the ones that train the model if you're building a chatbot that has an NLU interface with open text input or open voice input? So as soon as you come out of POC phase, I and the rest of my colleagues all feel that this is something you should designate to a certain. It can be a conversation designer, as long as they're also interested in learning more about the NLU side, training model. How do you feed it clean data so that it, is trained properly, can get a high accuracy, because we really see that, you know, you might have it sounds very cliche, but to say like, oh, you have the creative conversation designer on the one hand, and you have maybe the more techie person that is a little bit more, can learn a little bit better how such NLU algorithms works, how you best work with them. And as your chatbot or voice bot becomes more complex, that technical side is gonna become more complex. So, you know, the more complex it gets, the more important it becomes to have one or several people specifically for that role. So we call those trainers, and that's all I do. Basically, I train the models and help with integrations, dialogue integrations into backend systems. So yeah.
So on your team, in the early stages, you might have someone doing both the creative writing and also thinking, okay, this might want to be our intent here, like this is probably a good intent for here. But then later stages, you probably separate those out into two roles.
Yeah, sort of a cutoff point that I think works is that as soon as you have more than 50 dialogues, aka 50 intents in your model, it becomes a job on its own to make sure that those 50 or 80 or 100 or 200 intents don't cause confusion, because the more intents, the more possibility for confusion.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, Marlinda, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think with that Salesforce, we don't really have separate roles for these different aspects. We actually, like my manager likes to call it having a full stack conversation designer. We don't have separate people designing the flow designs or the AI training. It's because I think conversation designers are the best prepared to do the training because they're more closest to the experience. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting take, a bit of a different take. Brittany or Grace, any thoughts on this? I don't want to put you on the spot because this wasn't a question we all prepared for, but just want to give you.
I like what you just said, Marlinda, about the full stack conversation designer, because yeah, that's how Wix does it too. And so, but I think when the systems, you know, we use when the systems become more complicated, I think we'll kind of probably have a touch point person with the data scientists and then running the NLP engines. So for now, we have our system built out and we will go into the system and fix what needs to be and add what needs to be. But later down the road, I think that we'll probably have one touch point person working with those people.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting conversation and speaks to also the level of collaboration and conversation that needs to happen between the design and tech sides of the house and the project team, no matter what those roles are. And I wonder whether, you know, one question or the thing that we've been thinking about is like the different kinds of disciplines that conversation designers are coming from. So I think maybe some conversation designers may be more familiar and at a home getting deep into the tech, whether others may be more on the storytelling side and needs a bit more coaxing to get into that side of things. Both roles are both flavors of content designers are needed and valid. But I think the role might flex depending on who you have and what they need to learn. But it's I love that idea as well. Full stack conversation designer, can remember that one.
Yeah, that is a really interesting term. So if I may actually follow up with Brittany on this one. So when you're like, as a hiring manager, for example, if I were hiring a conversation designer and I needed them to be a full stack designer, how might I assess their skills in terms of, oh, I know that they can do everything that I would need them to do in that role that covers kind of a broader set of tasks than just writing prompts, for example?
Yeah, when in the hiring process, we were not content with just somebody who is just great at writing, because that, it's an important skill. But I think with conversation designers wearing so many hats, it can't and it depends on the company, of course, but for Wix, we needed that full stack conversation designer. So, and writing's just one facet of that. So we did look with people who had more, not like not necessarily like full on software engineering. Well, actually, that is what I was, but and just had a interest in writing. That's my background, like software engineering going into writing. But so for assessing the prospects, it's knowing that they could have that logical and systematic thinking and a good attention to details. That was definitely probably the forefront concern. And because I think that is conversation design. Writing is a huge part of it, but it's the puzzles, it's the fitting different things where they need to go, and connecting things disjointedly, and working within those limitations. So I think having that more technical background is definitely, or at least you don't need the background, you need the brain. You need to be able to think like that logically, or in that logical way, and have creativity too. So conversation design is it's difficult to find, to find all of that. But of course, there's learning too. So mainly it's just, if somebody, we can teach, you can teach anybody anything, but it's just that they have the interest, having the interest, and can demonstrate that they can fit into those different ways of thinking.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Marlinda, there was a follow-up question for you from Matt. Do you feel like the full stack approach, where conversation designers focus on the language in aspect, precludes the designers putting more focus on the language out aspect? And will this leave them any bandwidth for doing usability testing and other UX functions? So I guess another question is, do you have people dedicated on your team to just that UX testing as well?
No, including in the full stack is also the usability testing and the.
Wow.
And we do it all. They're not mutually exclusive. I think in order to be able to create conversation designs that speak to the users, you got to understand. And how do you understand? You got to do the research first. Okay. So you would say on your team, your designers span the writing, the AI training, and the testing all in one. Is there anything else that they do that we're missing too? No, I think we do it all. Some integration work.
Oh, okay, nice. Cool, okay. I hope that answered your question, Matt. Any final thoughts on this? This is such an interesting topic, and I think so many teams are really figuring out where to draw this line between the writing, or I guess more the creative versus the tech. So I'm really excited that we're having this conversation right now.
Different companies do it differently. I don't think there's a wrong way. It really just depends on the need and the kind of product that you're trying to build.
Totally. And I mean, ultimately, if we want to be setting candidates up for success to be applying at these companies, it's so nice to know that, okay, at Salesforce, you might want to know that you are a full stack designer, and also communicate that when you are interviewing,
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I mean, for us, what we found is that, we have to be open-minded, because this is such a new and emerging field, and people are coming from diverse backgrounds. So, if you have like a predetermined checklist to tick off, you're gonna, maybe miss out on great opportunities to hire fantastic people. And I think, as Brittany rightly said, there's always an opportunity to upskill. There's always an opportunity to learn. We're all learning every day. So I think, for us, having that design mindset though is really important, so that you're really focusing on that user, the human, and who's going to be using this product and speaking with the bot. So that's super important. And, you know, something that has been overlooked in the past is, you know, having people on the team who get that language, and conversation is a complex thing, you know, and any conversation designer knows that and understands that. So I think they're kind of two of the things that we would be looking out for. But, you know, conversation designers are coming in all shapes and sizes, which is great. And
yeah, and going back to what Brittany said, it's not about the background, it's about the brain. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to learn in this field. So you have to really just be looking for like people that want to learn, you know. This is a bit of a related question. Willem, if you want to start us off on this. How can a conversational design team be optimized when a team has no linguist or conversation designer, and the dialogue is actually handled by marketing or product management or other people?
Right. How can you do design if you don't have a designer? How can we skip past the pesky designers, get what they give us without having, you know, their complex blah blah in our process? Why can't we just be developers, marketeers, or a product owner and a developer, or just say, you do this, okay, and you do this, okay, and now it's done, and we ship it, and we're done. So this, I mean, that's how I'm reading this question, right? This is, and this harks back to when I was a UX copywriter. This was always something you had to prove to whether it's marketeers or developers. What do you bring? What do you bring to the table? And I mean, to be fair, I was a freelancer as well, so I had to really prove my worth, like basically every week. And it's hard because, you know, face it, design is maybe not the number one thing. If the website is still live, if the developers are still there working, but the designer is laid off because we have an economic downturn, well, some people will still buy our products off of our website. But if it's the other way around, if we keep the designer, but the developer is sent away, yeah, then the website goes down, then we can't sell anything. So, I mean, I understand where they're coming from. It's maybe not, we're maybe sometimes a little less essential at first than maybe a developer. But yeah, I mean, where do you even begin with a question like this? I mean, I'm sure that the other people in this panel are eager also to not to insult the person asking the question. I totally get it, but how do you skip if you don't have a conversation designer, how do you do it? Well, you could do some free courses on conversation design. They're all online, and you know, familiarize yourself with some of the concepts that we bring, whether it's acknowledging the input that a customer is giving us before we actually solve it, because that's important. You want to acknowledge before you solve. Otherwise, half of the customers are, you know, already lost. Anyway, other people, please jump in on this one.
When I first read this question, I thought to myself that you find one because there's no, you can't come up with a good enough product without these people. You know, it's a very complex product. So, but if you really, really can't and you really, really need it, then you'll probably be disappointed. But looking at the conversations that your users are having with the bot is always the way to optimize, I would say. And that's something everybody can do, and they can take a look at that and, you know, come up with ideas from that, I would say.
Yeah, Willem, I think you bring up good points about how, so I personally believe that we are almost in the very early phases of this whole sort of product field. And, you know, in the early days of design and computers, engineers were the ones building and designing websites, right? Because those were the only people that could. You had to be very technical. So I think that's just kind of how all technology goes through phases, where with conversation, we also had, dialogue flow first on the scene, which allowed us to actually do the thing. And you had to be pretty technical to work the thing. And then, so the people that were technical and working with products like dialogue flow were the ones designing, because you had to be doing it at the same time. And now we're finally starting to see that distinction between designers and developers working hand in hand. And it's possible that down the line, the same way that on a team right now, if you could only hire one person, you might need to hire a dev who has like a really good eye for design for your website, right? On a team that can only hire one person to handle their conversational product, might be the same kind of thing. Like you might need that technical person who also has a design eye, well, in this case, design ear. But yeah, the roles will continue to, I think, be more separated as time goes on and as these products get more and more and more complex too, right?
Yeah, maybe now that I've calmed down a little bit. Like, if you want to talk about it in marketing terms, what do conversation designers, just like copywriters and for other channels, what do they mean? What do they bring brand? If you want to talk marketing, if you just put a bot live and maybe it sort of does what it's supposed to do because you have a good developer and is able to somehow make text that isn't scaring the customers away because it's, developer, then it's this much text. And if it's a marketeer, then it's this much text, but it's this many exclamation marks. If you somehow get past that, then you're still not going to add to your brand. So at some point, your customers will start to slowly leave. So.
And Marlinda, your hand was up.
Yes, I actually just wanted to add, if you're really in a pinch and you can't hire someone, maybe a contractor or like a freelancer, but definitely like what Brittany said, definitely get somebody. But at the same time, at Salesforce, we enable non-designers to get best practices through our guidelines and stay standard with our patterns library. And then with the Einstein bot builder, we also have a template in the builder that comes out of the box that has been designed by a conversation designer. So you can just follow that pattern, like just similar to dialogue flow. And the thing I like about the bot template is that it also automates the technical piece. So it sets up your channel for web chat and your Salesforce flows. And so it just makes it easier for a non-designer to kind of like slowly create the conversation design piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Grace, did you want to add too?
Just one, like Willem, I absolutely agreed with you, your first comment there. So, I would say my response to that would be get a designer, as you said as well, Brittany. Sorry, there's my dog. But one thing I would say, I agree that many product teams and marketing teams, for that matter, are getting closer to, tapping into design sensibility, design thinking. So, we do need to acknowledge that. And one thing that I would just add as an aside, absolutely, we don't want one team, the marketing team, just running with it. However, what happens sometimes is that the design and the tech teams go ahead and build a bot, and the marketing teams are maybe involved at the beginning, and then they just let them go do their thing without realizing how important it is for them to be feeding into how everything is growing and developing, how the brand is being reflected through the personality, through the bot, as it continues to converse with more customers every day, maybe than their CEOs. So there's huge opportunity there to make or break the brand, as you were saying as well, Willem. So I think that's something to bear in mind too.
Yeah, great point. There was one question from Sajid that is also related, and I think it would be interesting to touch on. If there was just one skill you could grant to non-designers, what would it be if you could only hire a non-designer? So Willem, you already answered. But Grace or Brittany or Marlinda, any thoughts on this?
This isn't a skill so much, but a deep sense of empathy is the one, the one thing that you really truly do need. So I think that's, you're born with that. But
that's a great answer. Yeah, I agree with that.
I would say that, and this is probably the case for all designers, but you need to be good conversationalists yourselves to be able to collaborate and communicate with others on the team. I think that's a given. Maybe that's kind of common sense to everyone, but that would be something I would look for.
Yeah, that's so important.
I think that's like something that should not be overlooked at all, because just, you're working with so many different people in order to create this thing, that you need to be able to work amongst a lot of different people. So just being able to communicate, like it does seem obvious, we're conversation designers, so
Yeah.
conversation, you'd think so, but it's more than that. It's it's being able to work with a wide spread of people from a wide variety of backgrounds in order to produce that for oftentimes people who of an equally varied background. So yeah, very important.
Cool. All right. This is kind of a theoretical, but what is the ideal number of team members? And how bad is it for anyone to be pulling double duty? So again, this is still related, but I like that we're looking at this question from all different angles, because I think so many teams all over the world are wondering, like, do I need one designer? Do I need two designers? Do I need, what do I need to have an effective team? So in your ideal world, who do you have on your team? Grace, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think I'll be quick here because I feel like I've been talking a lot. I mean, it's kind of, the answer to that is kind of like, how long is a piece of string, right? Because it will depend on the scope and the ambition of your project. But you'll obviously need to have, your experts on the technology and the AI side, as well as your conversation designers. And I think, like, I feel like, one thing to bear in mind is, and I've experienced this as a content designer and as a conversation designer, it can be hard to find these people, and when they are found, there's just one person on a team, and that's an awful lot of pressure to have on the one content designer or conversational designer. So where conversation is the interface, we need to ensure that there's enough people on the team to be able to deal with the level of work. So I think this may not be the experience of the other panelists, but I know that certainly I've experienced that in the past, and it's a lot of pressure when you're the only one. You don't have a sounding board of someone who with the same discipline, and you've got a hell of a lot of work to do. So making sure that we have enough conversational designers on teams is really important too. That's what I'd say there.
So at least two conversation designers can really help, because they can work together and bounce ideas around. Yeah,
exactly. And then they might, have different perspectives and add value from that point of view also. Willem has his.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I noticed that myself, and I see with other teams. And in this case, we usually have that conversation designer, AI trainer role separate for the slightly bigger projects. So then in those cases, would have two AI trainers, two conversation designers minimum. And it also works the other way, that sometimes I've been in teams where there were just too many people, huge enterprises, and then they have 30 people. Not all 30 are conversation designers. Maybe you have 8 to 10 conversation designers. That can sort of work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then, you have backend developers, UX designers, product owners, other stakeholders, business analysts, data scientists. I mean, it sounds great, but it's, oh my God, so many meetings. And and so I'm doing some other projects where basically the core team is 5 or 6 people. So not just conversation designers, but also product owner and some other roles. And I think we're doing the same amount of work than that those 30 people did. So
wow, okay,
yeah,
that's amazing. Brittany, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I think at the core, of course, you have to have your developers to make it run, but then in terms of like the actual, and then it's very nice to have a product manager, and fielding all those requests. And I mean, it depends. For Wix, we have our support bots, all the different departments coming at us. So having that is very, very nice. And then having a business analyst, I think, is definitely the only way to measure that you're actually doing something, that you're doing well, but to find the errors. So I think that, and then of course the conversation designer, and having at least 2, so you can have multiple eyes, so you don't have to be always the one, if there's just one of you, then having to deal with all of it, it's tough. But then from there, it like Grace said, how long is a piece of string? You can do more with more people, but also like Willem says, that more people means more meetings and then less work getting done too. So it is a balance. But for now we've been building out our localization team, so we're going to be able to produce more language market specific flows, and we can only do that by building out our team more. We have the capacity to do more with more people. So I think there is the core team, and then just with more designers you can do more. So
thanks, Brittany. Marlinda, any thoughts on your ideal team structure?
I mean, definitely more people, better. Depends on the scope of the project. So yeah, everyone had really great answers, but ideally more. Actually, we're also hiring. So if anyone's looking for a job, send me your resume and your portfolio, and I'll pass it on.
Awesome. Do you want to put your contact info in the chat?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we have 5 minutes, and I'm not going to keep anyone longer than we promised. There are 2 very, very good questions right now in the open Q&A. One is about managing multilingual and multicultural teams, and one is about how do you manage like customizations that have to happen on the fly for a chatbot or conversational product. Do either of these speak to anyone here about, do we want to address one of these, or maybe type an answer out?
I would rather talk more about how to get into the field. I know there were a lot of questions posed before the call. Mm-hmm. Marlinda already talked a little bit about it. I think some of the questions were, how do I get into conversation design?
Yeah.
And to kick it off, I think the best way to do it is, try to build a bot on your own on 2 afternoons and sort of get stuck and accept that you're going to get stuck, and then maybe do some free online courses, try some more, and then you have, the beginning of a portfolio. And it's fine if you're just starting out, because most people in this business in this industry are still starting out. But to show that you were even able to bring a half-functioning chatbot or voice bot live is already, impressive.
Yeah, thanks, Willem. To streamline this question just a little bit in the interest of time, maybe we can all say, I'm almost positive that this entire panel has hired a conversation designer before. So what's one thing that you really can't compromise on if you are looking to hire someone? What's something that you would definitely need to see either in your conversations with them or in their portfolio or on their resume?
I actually answered, my answer is similar to something that I answered through one of the other questions, but someone who's open-minded about language. We're not here to police language and say hello is the better way to respond with when someone says hi or something like that. So someone who doesn't get lost in policing grammar. We care about diversity a lot. So actually, as a follow-up to the hiring, we're looking for people who are represent many varieties of English. So native speakers of different world Englishes, such as AAVE or Chicano English, or if English is your second language, we want all of these bring important perspectives to our team. So that's currently what we're looking for. Send me your resume.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I love that you said we're not here to police language. That's so true. It can be so easy to get lost in, that's not grammatically correct. We can't do that. But that's just not the case when it comes to conversation, because conversation is not written text, right? It's much more natural. Mm-hmm. Cool. Grace, Brittany, any?
I think I've kind of pretty much mentioned what I've said, that having a mix of technical, of that being able to think logically. Yeah, that's the big one, and the deep sense of empathy. But the thing that I can't get out of my head, which is not specific to conversation design, but just hiring people in general, is you got to want to work with the person. You got to just be somebody you'll enjoy the company of.
Absolutely. Grace, do you want to finish?
I think the other panelists have given some great answers then and there, and they're definitely attributes that I and my team would be looking for. And I think, a passion and a love for language and a curiosity about it would be 100% what I'd be looking for too. As well as, I love that the sense of empathy, because that's at the heart of great designers. So yeah, 100% just basically agreeing with everyone else.
Okay, well, this was a great conversation. Thank you all so much for sharing your time and your insights today. I don't want to keep anyone longer. We're right on time. So the recording will be sent out to everyone. If you, everyone has registered, so it'll be sent to you. And join us next time for more AMAs, and we'll see you around. So I hope everyone has a great day and stays safe.
Thank you so much, Riel. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
thank you, Riel, Uli.
Great fun. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.